Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to another video from Project IUoC. Now in this video, we will be looking at the differences between the Islamic law or Sharia and the conventional law. Now before we begin, we want to make a quick disclaimer in saying that in both of these topics, we will be looking at it at the surface level. Now of course, there is a lot more in-depth knowledge that we just do not have the resources to cover in this video, but inshallah ta'ala in further videos we will go much deeper and look at much more of these topics more thoroughly. To begin discussing the differences between conventional law and Sharia law, we firstly need to define and give a definition to what both of these terms mean and where do they come from. In terms of Western conventional law, we need to look no further than early European scholastic intellectuals such as Caesar Beccaria and Jeremy Bentham. Now these two really pioneered the idea of what crime is. And in discussing the definition of crime, let's take a look at Caesar Beccaria. So Beccaria says that the discernment of crime is based upon a scale of misdeeds, the highest of which is most destructive, and the lowest of which is the least injustice done to man, individually. Now what does this mean? Well, he says, if we have a scale of misdeeds, which we can signify as this, the least of which will be the least destructive in any act that occurs, and the highest of which will be the most destructive to society. And in between we have what is known as crime. So anything that falls under these two lines, any action will be considered a crime. Now crimes in conventional law vary from place, locale, and time. Every single nation in the world has different things that they consider which are crimes. Now this is a byproduct of maybe politics of that certain nation, or maybe even culture. Regardless, all around the world we find that different nations signify and hold very strongly different values, which leads to differences in what is considered a crime. Now, as opposed to where crime came from in the West, we need to look no further than these three terms. So the earlier scholastic intellectuals such as Caesar Beccaria actually imposed that crime was a byproduct of divine law, as the early European scholastic community really was a strong Christian believing community. They said that crime, or what is considered a crime, are those things that are held against the Christian belief. Now, the next category, which leads to what crime may be in a certain location in the West or in conventional law, is natural or customary law. Now, natural or customary law are what people indicate what crime is according to their logic and reasoning. And these are just common values that many world leaders and individuals alike hold very dear, such as maybe the right to life, or right to speech. Now this category of natural or customary law is mostly enshrined in international laws, such as the United Nations Charter. And lastly, the development of crime comes into political law. And as we discussed earlier, these vary in every nation due to the certain politics cultures, or even the values that certain traditions hold very dear. And this can again impose different crimes and different values of what one nation may deem as a criminal act and what they may deem otherwise. Okay, now let's take a look at the Sharia and what it says what crime is and how it defines it. So, the Sharia looks at crimes in two distinct categories. The first one being the Haqooq of Allah, or translated into the rights of God, and the second one is the Haqooq al-Ibad, which is the rights of creation. Now, both of these imply that the Sharia has actually given certain rights and certain rulings to both of these two categories. Firstly and foremost, God, and secondly, creation. And each of these rights take precedent over other things. And just as we've unboxed and elucidated to in our previous video what is Sharia law, we discussed that the Sharia ultimately is trying to preserve 5 fundamental rights. And of course, these are again deen or religion, life or intellect, wealth, lineage or family, and number 5 was honor. So the Sharia ultimately enshrines these 5 fundamental rules and values into these rights of God and rights of creation. And we know that this is instilled out of the mercy of God for the betterment of humanity. Now let's move on to our next topic, in which we will discuss what is crime and what does it actually mean in Sharia. So the word crime in Sharia is written in Arabic as jarima. Jarima. Now the translation for this word in English literally means to transgress. Transgress. And the idea here is that a crime is something that literally transgresses the social contract in a healthy society. It breaks apart and leaves the realm of safety in a society and enters into the domain of danger, as well as uncertainty. So this is ultimately the implication of what crime means. It is someone who breaks the social contract of a healthy society and enters into the realm of danger and uncertainty, thus instilling fear into its citizens as well as the society as a whole. And quite interestingly, not only does the word crime in Arabic means to transgress, but also the word for evildoer or somebody who is a criminal is called a fasiq. Now the word literally translates to splitting open a seed. Now the implications and the idea here is that one who commits a crime is someone who has split open the seed of society. Metaphorically, if we can imagine a seed with its important contents inside, one who splits it open and exposes it to danger has ultimately destroyed the safety of the contents inside, thus again resulting in fear as well as uncertainty. And that is why a criminal is called a fasiq, because they literally embody the idea of transgressing and destroying the safety of the society. Okay, now that we've carefully defined and explained what the word crime means from the Islamic tradition, let's take a look at how it categorizes crime in two distinct places. Now, the first category are called the hudud crime, and the second category is called the tazir. I want to firstly start off by discussing what the hudud crime is. Then later we will look and go over what the tazir means. So the word hudud in English literally means a boundary or a limit. Now the idea here is that the hudud are instilled inside of society to act as a boundary or limit in which nobody can transgress or overpass. And if they do so, that society has now entered the realm as of danger. That is why, again, the word fasiq or a criminal means one who has split a seed. The idea here is that the fasiq has split the seed of the hudud, that the hudud is the outer shell of the seed and inside is society. And once that occurs, once the hudud are broken, then the society has fallen under the category of destruction. And formally the hudud fall under the category of haqq of Allah, or the rights of God. In other words, the hudud are so severe in their implications that if one breaks the boundaries of the hudud, they have defiled the rights of God, and thusly the most harsh punishments are established in this category. And inshallah ta'ala, in our next upcoming videos, we will go more in depth and discuss what these transgressions actually are. And now another thing to note is that the hudud are explicitly mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah. And of course, this is to leave no room for ambiguity and to clearly and promptly establish punishments and the factors that are expressed within the hudud. Now the next thing that we're going to discuss are the 7 hududs, or the 7 most prominent crimes according to the Sharia. And these are: number 1, zina, which means adultery. 2nd is kadaf, or slander. 3rd is shurb al-khamar, which means the drinking of alcohol or doing any sort of drugs. And the 4th is sirqa, or theft. Now one thing to keep in mind is that this sirqa, theft, is a specific type of theft. which has many requirements to fall under the hudud. And inshallah, as mentioned before, we will look at this more deeply and more thoroughly in a different video. Now the next category is hiraba, which means robbery, which again, as with theft, has many qualifications to meet the hudud. The sixth is al-baghyu, or rebellion, and the seventh is rida, or apostasy. Now again, I want to explicitly state that every single one of these hudud crimes need to meet specific qualifications to be considered a hudud and to have a formal court hearing in a Islamic law. And one other thing to note is that every single one of these hudud can only be established and have a formal court hearing if they are done in public, not in private. And the idea here is that the Sharia can only condemn those actions that are done in public, in society, and not in private, in a formal court. And this is because in the world that we live in right now, public crimes are to be condemned and punished, and not private. But in the next world, in the hereafter, both public as well as private actions are going to be judged and condemned by God Himself. Thusly, the Quranic view dictates that the Sharia is here to preserve the public safety of a society and can overlook those actions that are done which are considered hudud in private, out of the way. Now let's take a look at our second category of crime that we discussed earlier as being the tazir. Now the tazir are every single one of those crimes that are non-hudud, which were mentioned in 7 previously. So they are all of the non-hudud crimes that we mentioned before. And these crimes are left to the discretion of the judge in a formal court hearing in Islamic law. Now the tazir crimes are mostly the transgressions of the haqq al-ibad, or the rights of creation, and fall under this category. And again, these are judged and looked at through the lens of the Quranic view. And are judged using the Sunnah as well as the Quran to establish what type of punishments the criminal shall receive. And which are mostly carried out on the grounds of severity of the transgression done in society. transgressions. And again, these vary from places, time, as well as what particular society these crimes have been committed inside of. Society. So this, in essence, are the two main categories of crimes. Now, insha'Allah ta'ala, we will discuss the punishments of the conventional and Sharia law. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.